There was a common bond between us because both of us had served in Vietnam during the Vietnam War. Sergeant Mike Geary was a tried and tested combat soldier. He was Special Forces trained and Pathfinder. He was airborne qualified. Mike was awarded CIB, which is the Combat Infantry Badge, Purple Heart for Wounded in Combat, Bronze Star with V device for bravery. Most of our associations were through functions at the post. When we greeted each other, Mike never failed to ask me about my mother, who was in a nursing home. On one occasion that I'll never forget, we were inside the post talking one day, and there were other members outside the post in the pavilion area. Mike started outside through the side door, and he hesitated for just a moment, and for that reason I can't tell you. And in the doorway, and while he was standing in the doorway, I called out to him, "Stand in the door." Only an airborne parachutist would have known the meaning of that command. Immediately, Mike starts in chanting the airborne chant. Stand up, look up, shuffle to the door, jump right out, and count to 4. If my chute don't open wide, I've got another one by my side. Airborne. You will never know the value of a moment until it becomes a memory. And to me, that will always be a memory to me. A long time ago, there was another combat soldier who loved and served his country, and when called, went forth to battle. He was a poet, and he wrote, "The Lord is my shepherd, I shall not want. He maketh me to lie down in green pastures. He leadeth me beside still waters. He restoreth my soul." He leadeth me in the paths of righteousness for his name's sake. Yea, though I walk through the valley of the shadow of death, I will fear no evil, for thou art with me. Thy rod and thy staff comfort me. Thou preparest a table before in the presence of my enemy. Thou anointest my head with oil, my cup runneth over. Surely goodness and mercy shall follow me all the days of my life, and I shall dwell in the house of the Lord forever. Please bow your heads as I read my cover. As I read the Veteran's Prayer. Our Heavenly Father, the march of our comrade is over, and he lies down in the house appointed for all the living. The Master saith, "Thy brother shall rise again, for I am the resurrection and the life, and he that believeth in me, though he were dead, yet shall he live." We beseech thee to look in mercy on his bereaved family, and to thy name shall be praised forever and ever. Amen.
Amen.
Hello, everyone. My name is George Saplinski. I'd like to share a few thoughts about our good friend Mike. I met Mike at the VFW post in Fairhope about 8 years ago. I really got to know him when we went to Melbourne, Florida at the Vietnam Veterans Reunion and shared memories of our time in service. He was a Vietnam veteran, served with the 75th Rangers, a retired NYPD officer, and a member of the Marine Corps League, and a strong supporter and member of the VFW. having been commander of the Fairhope post. We had things in common which surprised me. He would go to the whistle stop in New Hyde Park, and so did I. My brother lived across the street. In Vietnam, Mike served in Quang Tri province, and so did I. We enjoyed going to the gun range and golfing. And on that note, as an example of how much fun he was to be around, when we were assigned a course that was crowded, Mike would lead us to another course that was empty. We got caught on the fourth time. Like the ranger he was, Mike led the way. He was always upbeat and strong about his illness, never burdened us with that. When we got together, I wouldn't have even known he was ill by his behavior. Even on that last Friday when we got together, he was happy and full of fun. Joked and laughed all the time. He was a prankster. He talked about his father and uncle serving in World War II, and he was always proud of that. I am going to miss Mike and always remember the good times we had together. Simplify, Mike.
My name is Bill Geary, I'm Mike's cousin, and if you look at the table over there, you'll see a picture of 5 men, Marines, Navy, Army, and those were the brothers. My father was off to the left. And there were 7 Geary brothers, one died young. And quite a time in the 30s, 40s, and 50s they lived in New York. I was 2 when my parents moved away, so I really didn't know Mike. I'm 10 years old. And we got to know each other in '82. It was coming through. We stopped at his parents' house. And it was instant. It was like a month. And really close. He didn't wear his feelings on his sleeve. But I know he loved his wife. I know he loved his family. He loved his children. And he loved his production. He really worked. He got the extra compensation he had, did all of it. And the best I can say is to give an example for some other people. One good friend of his on the job, he had a tour into taxi Louisiana, which might sound a little quiet, but it really wasn't. There were 32,000 of them, and quite a battle to get tourist money inside. And Frank Hickey is an author, and I let Frank know about this. And I'll read a little email that he sent to me. And one other thing, how Mike was viewed. I didn't know this. Dave told me today, in the Marine Corps League in Massapequa, there has been one grunt, one Army man that was voted in full member of the Marine Corps League in Massapequa. And that was Frank. And Frank certainly did too. And he gets a little into, as I say, he's a writer. Mike Geary wrote into our lives dusty, lusty, colorful, and profane, like Davy Crockett. And buckskin adventurers towards the hour. We were youngsters, unarmed peace officers, in a newly founded city agency, 18 of us, ranging from 22 to 57, a rainbow of drawbacks and skills. We were supposed to regulate the roughhouse 37,000 cabs in the city. Crack hit the streets that year, right from Jump Street. Mike showed he was the leader, most of us. Never seen a leader before. Vietnam had taught Mike how to motivate and lead. It informed this 19-year-old youngster from Garden City. Right away, Mike crafted the Springer Corps from scratch. Because of him, our squad name continued to spread. But I had been around as a European day laborer for 2 years and private eye for 10, but I never knew it that well. Mike and I were trying to keep order of the madness of the nighttime porta fire in their town sport. Taxi hustlers and street thugs battled for space, hustled bucks, and naive tourists. Threats and fights erupted over illegal gypsy cab drivers violating every law except the law of gravity. Knowing their turf, they carried every weapon possible. Carrying an illegal gun in New York would only get you probation if the court even convicted you, because juries understood how dangerous this was. Mike and I had scuffled with a few clients as we were later. Then we sat in our dark unmarked car waiting for the adrenaline to slow down. As our gold-plated chicken, my own knees were knocking like a. Hey, Mike, I said, this is crazy dangerous for $13,000 a year because I took this job to meet girls. More squabbles and fights erupted through that night. Mike showed leadership, quiet confidence, constantly. He did more than he had shared. We talked about everything, including his new son, Drew. By the time the shift ended, friends, they all were spoken. That's right. Mike's door was always open to all of us. That little cot says free.
Hi, good afternoon. I'm Mike's brother, Phil. And I hope nobody has ice cream in the car because we might be here for a little bit. So I want to tell you a few things about Mike is, seeing through the eyes of a brother. First of all, on behalf of Pam, my family, and my sister Kathy, we want to thank everybody that came today to pay respects to Mike and to honor his service. I know that some of you traveled quite a distance, a little long way. Some drove many hours, and for that, families, thank you all. And special thanks to my cousin Bill and Sharon for being here, and for my sister Kathy, who flew up with me from New York yesterday. So let me share some childhood memories of Mike being my older brother. I don't remember a lot of the early ones where we lived in Hempstead, New York, because I guess I wanted to kind of not think about the beatings I got, from an older brother. So it got a little more vivid when I moved to Garden City when I was 7, Mike was 12. And I remember having hockey games in the basement, and we would craft the pucks out of aluminum foil and just have at it downstairs and just go at it like brothers would be, very competitive. And I don't know much who won those games, but we just sure had a good time doing that, had fun. The basement also served as a place, a meeting place, so to speak, for when things got out of hand and maybe we didn't do things that we should have done, and we would have meet and beat sessions with our dad, Frank Geary. He got hit with a belt, once or twice, all in good fun. My sister Kathy, though, must have gotten off for good behavior because she never had to suffer the wrath of the belt. And we looked at those sessions as behavioral sessions, changes in attitude. I remember my mom, Ruth, her first trip she took on a plane. She had to go down to Florida, but it wasn't to go on any kind of a cruise or any exotic vacation. She had to go down to Florida to get Mike because he hitchhiked down to Florida. When he ran out of money, he called up and needed to come back home again. I think he was maybe 13, so we always had animals growing up. We always did the dog, we had the cats, we had a couple birds. One day Mike woke up and kind of livened things up a little bit. He brought home a monkey. I don't know if you've ever been up close and personal with a monkey, but first of all, they stink, okay? And the monkey, you let loose in the house, and the monkey started jumping around on top of picture frames, and just like it was like the Bronx Zoo in 137 Hay Street. So needless to say, the monkey didn't last too long, but it sure made for a lot of laughs down the road. Did I mention yet that Mike was a free spirit? He was enrolled at St. Patrick's Military Academy in Harriman, New York. I think the intent there was to get Mike a little more disciplined. Well, there was one documented episode that Mike was caught breaking curfew and climbing out of a window. Somehow he got caught, but then again, Mike was never really a fast runner. After a couple other smaller incidents, the top commander suggested it was best that Mike not come back for the following academic year. Little did they know that Mike would come charging back into the military when he enlisted while he was in high school. Mike didn't finish high school. He enlisted and he got his GED while he was in the service. There are not too many juniors in high school that enlisted in the military to go serve his country. Why there were other folks that were hightailing up north of Canada to avoid military service. He did nothing but embrace military service. And for that, I'm very proud of my brother for his service to the military and for all these brave men and women who came out to support the service today. Shortly after returning home from the military, I got to spend a summer with Mike cutting lawns in Freeport, New York. I remember him just kind of driving around a lot, doing a lot. And we did painting of some houses, and then Mike would always be in front, to collect the monies that would due us, and then I kind of would get my share doled out to me, but I guess that was Mike's own right, and doling the monies as he saw fit. But again, that was the older brother taking me down there. The only time I could actually, Mike was a tough guy, and 5 years being older than me, he was a hell of a lot stronger than I was, and I could never really kind of take him on, but there was only this one window of opportunity that I had, and it was whenever Mike got a tattoo, because his skin would be sensitive for a couple of days, and that was my only window of opportunity to be able to like grab his wrist or his forearm or some body part. So maybe lucky for me, Mike had a lot of tattoos. I was Mike's best man once. No, sorry, twice. I guess I didn't do a good job because when Pam and Mike got married in January of 2005, I was relieved of duty and Cowboy was the best man. So to this day, I'm still trying to figure out what the hell did I do wrong the first two times. But I can totally understand. It was a beautiful military affair. It was just, the shining swords and the procession. And I know Pam and Mike had to walk through the procession walking in, and you could just see the shining swords glimmering. And I was kind of thankful that Mike and Pam were a little bit on the short side. Nobody got hurt. And I'm also happy that they do that in the beginning instead of at the end of the reception where it could be a really bad visual there. It was quite the event at Crest Hall back in 2005. Mike was my best man in June of 1982 when I got married. I've been married 32 years to my wife, Sue, and she's very sorry that she couldn't be down here today. She has her mother staying with us who had 2 strokes. She's 82, so she needs a lot of care, and my wife just couldn't make it down. But anyway, so one story is Mike, the best man, was driving me to the church, and we grew up in Garden City, so we drove through Garden City on our way to North Merrick, where I got married. It was a hot, muggy day in June, and we were stopped at the corner of Franklin Avenue and 7th Street at the light, and to the right was Leo's Bar and Grill. And Mike wanted to know if we wanted to stop and get in and have a cold one. Mike, you get married at 11 o'clock, I'm the groom, you're the best man. We kind of got to get to this wedding on time, okay? And besides, I didn't know too many, drinking establishments. I went in with my brother where, we'd be in there for a quick one. So I knew that would be a bad thing. So we didn't go, which was good. But I do remember a line in Mike's speech, the best man speech, where, he's, talking about Sue and myself. And he turns around and he asks everybody in the audience, if anybody owed him any money, come on up. He loved being life of the party. and he was very much a social butterfly. Did I mention that Mike already was a free spirit? I think I might have. In 2000, I moved back to New York from Southern California. And I'm glad that all three of my kids got to know Mike and Pam. They thought he was a really cool uncle. And shortly after we came back, Pam and Mike came up, brought the dog, and I have a pond on my property. And next thing I know, Pam and Mike were like swimming in the pond. And you know, he's telling me about he could feel the fish swimming between his legs, and you know, he could feel the cold springs coming up from the pond. I've lived in the house 15 years. I've never been swimming in a pond once. I ice skated a couple of times on top of it with her, but anyway, he loved life and grabbed all the gusto there. Sorry, just want to catch my place here. So we would come down and stop and see Mike on Long Island as well too. You know, for the holidays we'd stop and see him. And Mike was such a fanatical cleaner. I don't think he ever met a vacuum or a mop he didn't like. And I know Pam can attest to that. I know Mike and Pam really enjoyed living down here in Alabama. You know, getting away from the hustle and bustle of New York, shoveling snow, scraping ice off the car. You know, he really enjoyed, you know, the life that he had down here. And I'm glad I got to come down and visit Mike and Pam on two separate occasions. The first occasion, a different part of town that he lived in, on Hillendale, thank you. And his good friend that's in attendance here, Gerald, lived across the street, and came down and visited him there. Had a lovely dinner at Gerald and Christina's house. It was very nice that they welcomed me in, being a New Yorker and knowing nothing about, you know, Tiger, you know, LSU football, and you know, being a Jet fan. He still let me in his house. Came back a second time when Mike invited me. I knew it was important for him. We were playing a golf tournament, and he had moved, and Pam and Mike had moved in 2010 to now where he is now. I know the golf tournament was important to him, so I came down to play in it, and you know, he helped us, you know, set up the tournament. It was really a nice thing, and it was, you know, meant a lot. And you know, he went out and got sponsors and everything else. And you know, Mike wasn't, you know, I mean, I guess he started playing golf a little bit more in retirement. But in any event, I got to play this for him. It was great. It was a hot day and everything else. And after a few holes, you know, I noticed Mike stopped playing golf, and he kind of hot, you know, so we kind of hang out in the golf cart, in the shade of the golf cart, and not too far from the golf cart was the cooler, so I kind of got it, you know. So I got to shoot a couple more holes for Mike, and we went back to the VFW, and I stayed afterwards, and it was a lot of fun. And I know, you know, when we did talk on the phone, he'd be telling me about some trip that Pam and him were planning, whether they were going to go off to Arizona or gamble in Mississippi or back down to Florida to visit with friends and celebrate life. And really, you know, being retired, that's what they got to do. And that's kind of a neat thing. Pam and Mike certainly didn't let the dust settle onto their feet. And of course, on the phone, we'd have to, you know, steer the conversation back to, you know, sports and, you know, talk about, you know, we're both Jet fans, passionate Jet fans. So, of course, we commiserate a lot together because the Jets, you know, sucked. In baseball, we had different teams. He was a Met fan, and I was a Yankee fan. And those Met teams just really pissed him off. I'm almost finished. I know. The ice cream is melted, so don't worry about it. Mike was also very instrumental in helping people. And my sister Kathy, her husband Matt, Mike helped land him a job in the school district back in New York, and Matt still works in the school district in New York. And you know, one thing he did for me when I was living in Southern California, which meant a lot to me as well. A good buddy of mine growing up, and he was at my wedding party. His father, a real good Irishman, William Flynn, he was the Grand Marshal of the St. Patrick's Day Parade. And Mike videotaped the parade and then sent it out to me in California so I could watch it. And that meant a lot to me. And that, you know, that was kind of the caring guy he was behind that, you know, that kind of a, like rough kind of, you know, demeanor that sometimes he would portray. I know we will all miss Mike, the fun-loving guy that he was. Really, the life of the party. The husband to Pam, my brother, and the sister to Kathy, and my sister Kathy, the father to Drew and Lauren, the brother-in-law to Bonnie, Maureen and Fran, and I know, and a friend to all of us. God bless Mike, and as he would often like to say, let's get this party started.
Unless somebody else wants to say anything, I think that's it. I would like to invite everybody back to the VFW in Fairhope, right after the reception on Nichols Court, off 98. And please come down and have a meal and enjoy yourself. And I'm sure Michael would want that. And thank you for coming.
Ladies and gentlemen, at this time, this does conclude our service. If you would, please return to your vehicles.
Yes, ma'am.